Hey, Tim Sykes here, and there's a lot to unpack. We've got some crazy runners. I'm getting tons of questions. There's a lot of opportunity, but it can be confusing if you're unprepared, if you've never seen plays like this, if, God forbid, you're a short seller right now and you're just on the wrong track and you're just trying not to lose all your money, and you're wasting all the opportunity on the way up. There's a lot going on. So I wanted to make a video going over this and my thoughts. Leave some comments below if you have some questions. Some of the questions I can answer like in comments and in future videos. Some of them are better illustrated when I give my all-day webinars or even my challenge webinars. I got a challenge webinar Friday morning, tomorrow. So if you're a challenge student, write down some questions, ask me during the webinar tomorrow. Inner Circle students, I've got an all-day live webinar on the 27th. I'll post a link to the Inner Circle if you want to get in there, but this includes more all-day live webinars. We also have an in-person event in January in Miami, which I'm excited to see all the Inner Circle students. And then we also do some other cool trips, like I've been bringing some Inner Circle students to Bali and to Japan, and we'll do more trips. But lots to talk about. I'll post a link if you have any questions about that. First, I gotta just congratulate some students. It's pretty amazing what happens when you get a big runner like POL, which finished up 656%. Even as the NASDAQ is down nearly 2% on the day, the Dow is getting crushed. Like, this is not a good market. And yet, POL, even though, it is down 50% off its highs, like there's a lot of volatility on the way up and down, it's still up a gigantic amount. And this is what I love. A lot of people say like, oh, Tim, you can't really make that much, when you have a small account. You always talk about like the same millionaire students. Understand, my millionaire students and I all started with small accounts. You can go back and look through our trades, but it takes giant supernovas like POL for people to realize, wait a minute, you can still bank with a small account. And I cannot congratulate one of my newest challenge students, Captain Steven, enough, where they specifically are taking a small position with small amounts of money and capitalizing on the volatility of this niche. Leave a comment below. Say, scared money does make money thanks to the volatility in this niche. I know that's a mouthful, but it's true. There's a saying like scared money doesn't make money. You have all these traders, these BS traders who hide their big losses, but BS traders and screenshot heroes who show like big position sizing. They love like gambling. They love hodling. And people think that trading is risky. They embrace their risk taking. They embrace their degenerative trading. You don't have to do that. You can trade scared, you can still be conservative, and you can still make millions of dollars over time while being conservative. Why? Because we're trading volatile stocks. And Captain Steven did a great job here. He literally just joined my challenge less than 2 weeks ago, but he's been studying his butt off. His name is Steven, by the way, Captain Steven. Just incredible to see what's possible. And I don't want to give the wrong impression being like, oh, join the challenge and make money right away. If you actually look at my millionaire students, in their first year, they make very little to nothing. But because they're learning from this volatility and they're trying to capitalize on plays like this. And Steven might have only been a challenge student for less than 2 weeks, but he recognized, thanks to his studying, that you can take a small position in these volatile stocks and really bank. And he bought it in the 2s and sold it in the 7s. And he's like, it's still climbing. And it eventually went to the 10s. But he saw the potential. And again, we have to thank short sellers. You might have seen some of my recent videos where I'm railing on short sellers. I'm railing on them because it's such a flawed strategy. And, compare this video to what a lot of other short sellers are saying right now, where they're just like trying to survive, like scary market. It's not a scary market if you're on the right side. It's scary if you're on the wrong side. It blows my mind. I even did like a, kind of this sarcastic tweet where I was like, someone should do a study on short sellers. Like, how can so many smart people be so blind as to not realize that when there's so many shorts, because it's such an overcrowded strategy, and I like to make fun of them, I say they're an invasive species. They create these spikes. It's not manipulation. It's not some kind of conspiracy. It's them. It's them. It's like that old ghost movie where Nicole Kidman doesn't realize that she's the ghost. She thinks someone's trying to break into her house and kill her and her kids when she is the ghost. This is what it reminds me of. It blows my mind. Stocks don't normally go from 1 to 10 in the same day. This is all short sellers getting annihilated, getting eviscerated, getting decapitated. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because they don't see it. But the sadder thing is that because short sellers are so shady right now, let's not forget, promoters are pretty much all out of business. Short sellers are the ones who are under investigation. There's several investigations going on right now against short sellers. So while they like to pretend to be all noble and act like, oh, we're fundamentalists, they're not wrong betting against these crappy companies based on the fundamentals. They're wrong in their approach. They're wrong in their groupthink. They're wrong in, frankly, just how shady they are. They don't show their big losses. Some short seller or short sellers or an entire community got decapitated, annihilated, eviscerated, crushed when this stock kept going. I can't tell you how many shorts were shorting this here in the 2s, let alone being like licking their chops, licking their lips in the 3s, thinking that this was going to be the top. And they're all shorting in all of this. And what happens? It just creates a giant squeeze. So thank the short sellers. Understand that we need them. I'm grateful for them, no different than how I was grateful for the promoters. But I have to warn newbies. If you follow any short seller and they post 1 or 2 or 3 big screenshots, tell them to show all their trades. It should not be that difficult to show all their trades. So while I'm proud of people like Captain Steven, who's using a small account, great job, Captain Steven. I'm glad that you had this light bulb moment for you. But this is just the beginning. Don't get too cocky. And show all your trades. I didn't even trade POL. How crazy is that? I missed it, and I'll go into that in a second. I traded the sympathy play, EFSH, which I got a little unlucky on, but still profited. And more than just me profiting or losing, I'm showing all my trades. I don't know why this is so hard. If you ever see any trader bragging on Twitter, on any social platform, in Discord, say, show all your trades, or I don't believe a fucking word that you say. That's sadly the reality of this industry. Some people say, Tim, calm down. Why do you get so worked up? 90% of traders lose. There have been several academic studies done. 90, 95. One study even says 99%. Okay? So I am not the best trader in the world, but I show all my trades and I am green almost every single year. Some years are better than others. But God forbid I would hide losses, or God forbid I would be on the wrong side of these things where you risk giant losses, you risk, your health. I can't even imagine how bad the health is of short sellers. Like if there was like a study done, I really think they should be studied because it's fascinating how they can be so smart and be on the wrong side of these things and the risks that they take. Like I would guess, I would probably put money on it. I don't like to gamble. I just trade penny stocks. But if I had to put money on it, I would guess that short sellers, cholesterol, heart, brain, everything is severely less healthy than long bias traders. And it's because even if you're right, like I said, POL is not a fundamentally good company. It did drop 50% off its highs. You risk so much. You don't know if it's going to stop at 10, 15, or 20. When you have these ridiculous run-ups, they can go anywhere. So massive, massive, massive props, to Captain Steven and a bunch of other challenge students. He's just one that I featured. Iman Trades made 480. H Malik made 240. And some people say, Tim, these are like, pathetic numbers. This is how all my millionaire students and I started making 10, 20, 50, 100, $200. You get experience. You learn to see how to capitalize on this. This trade that Captain Steven did, 100 shares in at 2, out at 7, What if it was 500 shares? What if it was 1,000 shares? What if it was 10,000 shares? It's the same trade, just with more size later on. And guess what? Some people will say, well, how do you know about it? Guess what? Stocks to Trade Breaking News alerted it here in the twos, and Oracle alerted it in the mid twos. Okay? So don't tell me that you're unaware of this. The only excuse that you can have is if you're a short seller on the wrong side of things, where you're in this groupthink, leper, toxic mindset chat room where everyone's like, this should go down, and it's going up. And then all the short sellers say, this is manipulation. You absolute morons. It's not manipulation, it's you. You are the Nicole Kidman ghost, and someone needs to snap you out of it. It's maddening. It's really maddening. I don't want people to lose, but if you're on the wrong track with the wrong strategy in the wrong chat room, it's not a question of if you're going to lose. It's a question of which one. Because also short sellers say like this stuff never happens, but almost every single day we're having another supernova. These ain't black swans. This is what happens when there are too many short sellers. You don't need to write long introspective tweets. You just need to recognize and think outside the box. Anyways, I also alerted in chat. I want to, show you this. Some people are like, oh, Tim, you're just talking about it in hindsight. At 11:23 in the morning, I said, I don't see any truly great setups. This was at 11:23. Look how funny this is. And this is why, whether you believe in God or if this is a simulation, it's pretty crazy. Because I said, I don't see anything great here. It was right here at 11:23. It started running up here like at 11:26, like 3 minutes later. I was watching it. It was it was on my watch list, but it wasn't breaking out to new highs. Right here, it broke out to new highs, like 10 minutes after that. In hindsight, I should have bought the breakout, but I really just don't like buying, midday. I wish this were near the market open. I would have bought this, but this is the kind of action that you're looking to buy. Already a pre-market spiker, already a morning spiker, already has news, but again, it's not the news that's pumping it up. It's not the manipulation. It's short sellers. Shorts were shorting all in here in the low twos and the high ones, thinking it's going to drop. They're doubling up, tripling up, quadrupling up here in the threes because they don't show all their trades. So there's no consequences to just, being complete degenerates, trying to dig themselves out of a hole and opening the door to a giant short squeeze. And anybody who is a long bias trader, you need to recognize this because it is beautiful. I've done several videos on this. Even my video earlier this week, I'll link this. Lessons from several giant spikers this week. Okay? We saw this. I highlighted IVVD, which was spiking, and also CCCC. These aren't black swans like the short sellers want you to believe. This is happening nearly every single day. So I try to warn newbies about it, but at the same time, the one good thing about short sellers being so blind and toxic and narrow-minded and, group thinky, they don't change. I can show them this, but, their short selling cults prevent them from thinking outside the box or, God forbid, acting outside the box. So every single one of these, like the best that short sellers can do, the best they can boast about is that they avoid it. And they're like, look at how good we are. We avoided this. And I'm like, you absolutely ridiculously narrow-minded fools. These trades aren't meant to be avoided. They're meant to be capitalized on. You can buy the short squeezes, but they just can't think outside the box. It's truly, truly astounding to see from the outside, because to me it seems pretty clear. Even I have students who are just starting for a few days and a few weeks who are tripling and quadrupling their accounts, or doubling, tripling, or quadrupling money on any one of these trades, and they're barely experienced at all. But it's a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because when you don't have a lot of experience, you don't know what you don't know, but it's a blessing because you don't know what you don't know. And so you're willing to take on trades and be open-minded. And I love that plays like this are spiking. So the funny thing is, I said, I don't see any truly great plays, but then right here, less than an hour later, I'm saying POL is crazy. This is at 12:17. This is right here. Okay. And I was watching it, and this, frankly, some people say, well, Tim, you're making a whole video. Why didn't you buy it? This was crazy to me right here. It doesn't look like much in hindsight, but I was watching it here at 377. I obviously wanted to buy the breakout. This is what I do, okay? I see which plays are heavily shorted and I'm looking to buy day highs. This was not a good time for me because it was midday, but then when it spikes up so much and frankly it's holding near the highs here, I'm really looking for it to break 4 or 420, which would have been the breakout. And I had my order ready, trying to buy 5,000 shares if it broke 420. But what happened here, and it's sad because you really can't see that much of it, but it broke down from 380 down to 320 in 10 seconds. And then 10 seconds later, it was back to 4. And then it comes down here. And so this kind of action kind of, scared me out of it. But at least I didn't short, right? Okay, so I pulled back from potentially buying it because of this. It was just scary. I can't buy a stock that can break down 60 cents a share so quickly. It's just too much risk for me. That's me being conservative. But at least I wasn't a short seller because look at this. Then in 1 minute, it breaks through 4 and it actually went all the way up to the 5s in I think this was 10 or 15 seconds. And then you have volatility halts. I'm not great at trading volatility halts. But this is what can happen with these short sellers and this short squeeze. And I am pretty unique in being able to say, I kind of caused this by making so many millions of dollars back when I did short. Half or more than half my millionaire students are short biased, showing how they made money. But the problem is that now it's just riskier. Even committed short sellers are saying, Tim, it's a different game. And I'm like, yeah, no. Why do you think I don't short sell anymore? Why do you think I warn about it? Oh my God. The idiocy, the stubbornness, the arrogance of short sellers. I can name so many words and they still don't change. And understand the quote big short sellers who are supposedly go on vacation. Supposedly they're so wise they know to avoid this. They are full of okay? If you actually audited the short sellers trades, more than half, it might even be 75 or 90% of them. I don't know exactly how many, but I would say more than half of them are shorting this and getting their butts handed to them. And they're so insecure that they don't want to show it publicly because then people would start to be like, wait a minute, they're not as good as I once thought. This is short sellers and many traders' greatest fears, to show all trades publicly. Because if you saw how terrible they are, you would not respect them like you currently do. And this is why I'm so proud to show all my trades. Not because I'm the best trader. I haven't even made 6 figures this year. But because I show all my trades and I trade like an absolute coward, like a little bitch. And I think that trading like a bitch, trading like a coward is a good thing with these plays. Let me talk about EFSH. So congrats to everybody on POL. Stocks to trade breaking news alerted it. Oracle alerted it. We have so many tools. I alerted it. So many tools. You have to be blind or toolless not to see these kinds of plays. And hopefully, if I get through to you after, videos like this, then guess what? You can start to realize, wait a minute, there's a lot of opportunity here if you're prepared, if you're on the right side of these things. Watch this video. I'll link this video. But let me talk about EFSH. So whenever there's a big trade or a big runner, I'm always looking for sympathy plays. POL, like I said right here, kind of screwed me out of potentially buying it. And then, when it's up here, I don't want to chase. I thought about it, but then it gets really choppy and it's really tough later on. This would have been my time to buy. This was unfortunate timing for me, like in the middle of the day. This kind of screwed me out of it, and then I don't want to chase. But guess what? I will be looking for sympathy plays. And EFSH had started spiking right in here because they have the same CEO. And they're two different companies. So like you say, how are they related? Same CEO, and there's a lot of synergies. This one just started spiking. I mean, it was already up, but right here, this was around 2:20 p.m. POL was at right here. It was coming down a little bit. But EFSH was just getting discovered. And usually when you have one big sympathy play, this was up, it's up 650%, but at the peak it was up 800 or 900%. This one started to come down a little bit. And when one play starts to come down, a sympathy play usually starts to come up. And I was really excited about EFSH, started spiking, started going like hockey stick supernova, but it got halted, volatility halt. I got it on a dip off the volatility halt, because sometimes you get like a volatility halt and then it comes down and then a dip and then it comes right back to the highs and then it can really spike again. So I got it around 1 on the dip, which was like right in here. And it did go up to like 110. I could have taken 10%, but I thought that it was going to go back to 120, 130, and then potentially go full supernova 140, 150, maybe even 2. That was my goal. I got a little greedy. I said my goal is to make 10 to 20% bounce. I had a 10% gain. I didn't take it. I should have, in hindsight, shoulda, woulda, coulda taken the $400 profit. But I thought that it could go more. Then it just tanked so quickly in here. This is always the risk when you're buying a sympathy play, when you're buying any big percent gainer, especially when you're buying midday. And it started to tank quickly, not because this wasn't a good sympathy play, but what happened right when I was buying it? This is the NASDAQ that just got absolutely crushed. This is when the headlines of how China wants to take over Taiwan started really going viral. And the NASDAQ, we're so overextended. We were due for a pullback. So whether or not the news is true, it was like rumors, we're just due. And the Dow also, like we've had such a huge run up. This is really the first big red day. The Dow was down, nearly 500 points. And this was right when I was like, literally I was buying it. This is like the Dow. What time did I buy it? This just is unfortunate. I was buying it like at 238. So it was when the Dow was right here. Okay. So this is literally the worst time to buy anything. Obviously I'm buying a penny stock, so it's not completely related to the Dow, but 3 out of 4 stocks follow the market. Let me show you the NASDAQ. I was buying right here. So literally the next like 20 minutes, it was straight down. And so speculative plays get, just taken out and shot. So I cut losses. This happens sometimes. I don't blame anyone else. I'm not even discouraged by it. Like I said, no bounce, ugly market. Rule number 1, cut losses. Bad timing for the market to drop so fast. Got to stay disciplined. It's a very simple reaction for me. If I do stay disciplined, if the market, goes the other way, if the stock doesn't do what I want for whatever reason, remember, I'm trading scared. I didn't buy POL because I was trading scared, and I cut losses on EFSH because I, was scared. But the good news is, because there's so much volatility, even if you miss one play, even if you have to take losses, as long as you have small losses, there's usually another opportunity. In EFSH, I waited, I digested how far it would go down. It actually went, EFSH, I cut losses in the 90s, and it went all the way down to the 70s. So this was, a fast loss cut. It was disappointing, but I just had to protect myself given the whole market, dropping. And POL also dropped pretty heavily right around this time. It was dropping from the 8s down to the 6s. But it also bounced. The cool thing about POL is it follows the 7-step framework. A lot of these big supernovas and short squeeze plays follow the 7-step framework, whether it's promoters or short sellers, because it's, all market inefficiencies. POL never deserved to go up this high. A lot of the promoted stocks never deserve to go up that high. But the good news is once they do go up that high, they fit into the 7-step framework rather nicely. So whenever a stock like POL drops, in hindsight, I probably should have dip bought this here in the 6s when it has kind of like this triple bottom midday here in the 6s, and then it bounces to the 9s. This doesn't look like much, but this is a nearly 50% bounce in like 15 minutes. A classic number 5 from the 7-step framework. But instead of buying POL, I dip bought EFSH, and I was buying it in here just because I thought that, the low 70s would be support. And I thought that it kind of unfortunately, lost its momentum because of the overall market. And that's unfortunate, but that can happen to any trade. Let this be a lesson to you. If you ever want to bet too big, if you ever want to get cocky, the market will humble you. The market will bring you back down to size. But again, If you trade scared, trading isn't so scary. And if you trade scared, you can still bank. And I actually finished green yesterday because even though I got unlucky with the whole market tanking and the China Taiwan news right as I was buying EFSH, I cut losses well enough in order to dip buy it much lower. I dip bought this, it's like a 25% drop from where I had it earlier. It's still up. It can still bounce. And I bought it here in the low 70s because it theoretically should have some support here in the 70s. It actually broke below 70. It went down to like 69. So if you ever think that technical analysis is going to be exact, like, oh, the support here is like 71, 72. So let me just put my stop loss at 70. Well, if you did that, you would get chopped out. This is why I don't use hard stops. And this is why I say it's like Pirates of the Caribbean. It's more of a guidelines, really. So I'm dip buying it in the low 70s because I think that's the bottom of the range, roughly. That's really hard to do that accent. Props to Jeffrey Rush. But I bought it in the low 70s because I still think that it can bounce. POL was bouncing. And, this one bounced a little bit too, and I took 7%. Wasn't that huge. Wasn't much of a bounce. It actually got up to like 82. So it did bounce a little bit, but, really disappointing action because of the overall market, and sympathy plays are just speculative. But I finished green. And this is why I'm so proud of my teaching, because I'm trading ultra scared. I'm on the right track, even though my ultra scared, mindset prevented me from buying POL, and my ultra scared mindset allowed me to profit on EFSH, even when it didn't really do what I wanted. In hindsight, and let's just play like an alternate reality, if there was no China-Taiwan news, in all likelihood, this would have respiked and gone to the 120s, 130s, 140s, and had a chance of going to 2. And then, I wouldn't just be looking at like a $200 profit. It would be more like 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. But life isn't perfect, trading isn't perfect, and unpredictable news can happen at any time. Going back to why I trade so scared. I'm trading volatile stocks in a very cowardly way and still profiting. Short sellers are taking on ridiculous risks, even if they do profit. Like some short sellers will say, okay, Tim, you're right that this stock went up more than you thought, but look, POL also dropped 50%. I understand that short selling can be profitable, especially if you're not an over-aggressive short seller, if you're a patient short seller, but you just take on excessive risks, okay? Let's not forget ZJYL, weirdest ticker name in a while, and it goes from 30 to 500 in a few minutes. It did come down, so short sellers will say, look, Tim, it did come down, but you're risking blowing up. You're not trading scared. You're unable to trade scared. This was literally in a few minutes. And short sellers will make all sorts of excuses. Black Swan, Black Swan. VVOS was just a few days ago. Let's not forget about these. I won't. Wow, was it more than 14 days ago? Time flies. VVOS went from 4 to 48 in just a few hours. Oh, Black Swan, Black Swan. CCCC. This went from 1 to 8 in just a few days. More and more of these plays are going supernova. And even if you trade them scared on the long side, there's so much upside and so little risk because you're willing to cut losses quickly. With short selling, you cannot cut losses quickly. It can get halted. It can go up quicker than you can execute. You can even put in a hard stop on your short. It doesn't mean you're going to get executed. It is physically impossible to short sell cowardly right now. Hence why I warn everybody about it. But at the same time, this is also why there's so much upside with these plays. Seriously, watch this video that I did earlier this week. I'll link it. I'll link blog posts about shorting supernovas. Just, you need to become an expert on short selling and, understand your enemy. I think I have a really good insight just because I used to be a short seller, so I know how they think. And the difference when I made millions shorting versus now, the risk has just gone up to the stratosphere. It's far easier to get shares to short. There's many brokers that now have borrows. They have all sorts of like little fees. And short sellers, part of the reason why it spread so fast is because brokers are doing deals with these short sellers. And, the short sellers are promoting, look how good it is. Look how cool it is. I can short. And they're just taking in, commissions and fees that they're sharing in with the brokers. And it's all, pretty corrupt. It's kind of crazy to see, how corrupt short selling has become. So I need to bring your attention to it. I'm not trying to create any drama. I don't need to mention any specific short sellers. Just know this applies to nearly every short seller. I have no problem with it. Look, there's always going to be corruption. There's always going to be scams. There's always going to be shadiness in stock trading. Before it was promoters. Now it's short sellers. Even though at least the promoters admitted to being shady. Short sellers still like to think that they're like high and mighty and noble, when in fact they've become what they hate. And they don't even realize it. But short sellers are very narrow-minded, and I can't thank them enough for their narrow-mindedness, because it creates these big squeezes. And without these big squeezes, the market has been on fire. Yes, some people say, like, the market has been on fire. Why haven't I been making more? The market has been fire because a lot of it is just big companies. Like, Amazon and like plays like, Meta and Nvidia have just been on fire. And it's because, until obviously, yesterday, but the reason why they've been on fire is because big companies are just able to really capitalize on this new tech boom, this new AI boom. Small companies are unable to. But the good news is, because of short sellers and because of how depressed, these penny stocks are, we're getting some big runners, low price runners. The IWM, by the way, which is, the small companies, has been on absolute fire lately, just because of the Santa Claus rally. And then we have the January effect coming up. And you really should study that. I'll link this blog. Sorry, I had a call. I don't know if you could hear. But this is a blog post that you should read. Tax loss selling, short squeezes, and the January effect. This was written, 4 years ago, but it applies every single year at times like right now. And this is why we're getting, giant spikers. We'll continue to get giant spikers all throughout the end of the year into January. We'll see it February too. And then also, this was a blog post I wrote earlier this year, the pitfalls of shorting supernovas. And so right now you kind of have like this combo package of, short squeezes due to how many shorts there are, along with a hot market for small caps. And that's why you have plays like CCCC, which have a terrible long-term chart. They can just start spiking like crazy. And, this is the upside. This is the cool thing that's going on right now. Look at POL. Some people will say, Tim, like, how could you ever go long this? This is a terrible long-term chart. Because it's a terrible long-term chart that lures in over-aggressive short sellers. Because short sellers are so shady right now, and most of the new short sellers don't realize the risks that they take, it creates giant squeezes. My heart does go out to, untrained shorts. Like, I feel bad for those of you, or, if you know somebody where you're thinking that, oh, this makes all such good sense. Dilution tracker says this, the fundamentals say this. And then more times than not, these stocks do come down. But the quote, black swans that supposedly never happen, but happen every day lately, they wipe out, newbies. And they, not necessarily wipe out big shorts, but they definitely take big chunks out of the big shorts accounts. And the big shorts are so insecure, shady, scammy, conflicted, that they can never dare let on that they're getting annihilated on plays like this. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can look at the price action, okay? And then you can read the long introspective tweets and posts by short sellers where they only congratulate themselves if they avoid it. Like, literally, short sellers' best case is like, I didn't lose anything, or I only lost a little. And I'm like, do you guys not realize how much upside there is? Like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'll link to this blog post. I'll shut up right now. I'll link to this blog post. I'll congratulate anybody who uses Stocks to Trade Breaking News or Stocks to Trade Oracle. I'll congratulate new challenge students like Steven and other students. I'm sorry there's so many, but I got to get going. And it's just a beautiful time to be along right now. So whether you dip buy, whether you buy breakouts, whether you miss it, there's more and more of these plays. And hopefully I can get you at least thinking properly and on the right side of these things rather than being a short seller trying not to lose everything, trying not to, have a heart attack and die. So anyways, leave a comment below if I'm making sense, if you understand this. Challenge students, webinar Friday morning. Come ready with questions. And Inner Circle students all day live webinar on the 27th. Come ready with questions. I'll post links if you want to join any of them below. The more you study, the more tools you have, the better your odds of success in this industry where 90 to 95% of traders lose. Good luck. You can make it though. Trust me, I've done it.